Welcome back, everybody, to the Weather Nerds YouTube channel. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman, and boy, do we have plenty to talk about. We have two areas of disturbed weather out into the tropics. One in particular, way out in the Atlantic, could potentially become Beryl and our first hurricane of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. So let's get started. So we're first going to begin by taking a look at the National Hurricane Center 7-day outlook. We got two areas we're watching. The one closer to home in here is showing about a 30% chance of development. I'm not overly concerned about this one because of its proximity to land and the fact that it's expected to move over into Mexico, so not a big deal. The one here right now out in the middle of the Atlantic, this one's most concerning, obviously showing about a 70% chance of development, likely to become Tropical Storm Beryl and possibly a hurricane, our first of the Atlantic hurricane season, as we go into late next week. Now, before we get into the meat of this update, please do me a favor. If you want to have this critical information as part of your YouTube feed, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're alerted on these updates. And as always, please share with your friends and give me a thumbs up. It really does help to get this information out to as many people as possible. Now, let's go back over here and take a look at what's looking like right now out into the tropics. Obviously, the one here that's out in the Caribbean here, showing big blows of thunderstorms, but kind of disorganized, not really showing any low-level circulation out here right yet. There is a little bit of Saharan dust. You can kind of see some of this brown hue in here. This is Saharan dust out here, and that sometimes is a bit of a tropical inhibitor. But this area down here, this is the cluster that we're watching that's expected to become Beryl as it continues to move off toward the west, toward the Lesser Antilles. It is forecasted to become potentially a depression in the next 48 hours. So that's running about 40% chance of development as this continues to move off toward the west. So we're going to shift gears here and take a look at the main sea surface pressures, okay? We're going to be focusing on this area of high pressure out here that's currently sitting out into the Azores, okay? This thing's going to be kind of drifting back here toward the west. And it's going to be the influence of this high pressure. It's going to dictate the direction of this storm. Now, I don't want you to really pay attention to the strength or anything of the storm because it's just way too far out, not to mention we don't have an established storm yet. So we're just kind of focusing on the high pressure here to go with this initially. So watch as I go ahead and take this forward into time here. As you see the development of the storm as it starts to approach the Lesser Antilles as we head toward Monday of next week. So by Monday, here's our storm system sitting down here coming into the Lesser Antilles. But notice this high pressure ridging back this way, okay? All right, so it's going to try to find that weakness. So what we're going to be watching is if we're going to get any kind of trough that's going to come in here, and the timing is going to be critical because depending on when that high breaks down, where that weakness is, that'll dictate where the turn's going to take place. Now, for right now, what this thing does is it steers around the periphery. It does weaken it here on the GFS, but again, don't pay attention to that. We're kind of watching this thing get steered into the Gulf of Mexico, but notice again this high pressure ridging that's still taking place here. You still got this ridging coming back in here into the southeast and into the northern Gulf. So this thing gets steered, what's left of it, according to this model, going into Texas. Now, if that ridging is not there, and we're talking about 10-11 days out, if this ridging is not in here at that time, then it could make the turn sooner. And there's a big display or big disparity in the models as far as exactly where that'll take place. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at two different spaghetti plot ensembles here to kind of compare the models and see how things are going to go as we go further into the future. Notice we've got a pretty good agreement here as the storm system approaches the Lesser Antilles. They're all fairly clustered together. But as we go further out in time, we see the disparity there that they, again, start to diverge as far as the exact track of the storm. Again, the further out in time you go, the greater the error is. As time goes by and we get closer to the track of the storm as it goes into the Caribbean, those areas begin to go down. So this is also showing up here on the other ensemble as well. Look at this one here. As you can see, it continues to move off toward the west, toward the Lesser Antilles, but then we got a big divergence as far as where exactly the storm goes and where that high pressure sets up. That's going to be key on where it begins to make that turn. Now, as far as the forecasted strength, here is the latest models on that, showing that probably within about 96 to 120 hours, we could potentially have our first hurricane. You're looking at right through here, you're looking at a pretty good chance of getting up to a Cat 1, but even as strong as a Cat 3. And with that very warm water out there, It's possible. The only thing that may inhibit the storm system, as I showed you there on the satellite imagery, is the fact that we do have a great amount of Saharan dust out there, which could kind of inhibit development a little bit. But again, it's something that's going to be an hour by hour and a day by day track as we go through the next several days. So checking out the latest vertical shear out in the Atlantic, the trend has been downward as it usually is this time of year, although we're running below the average line right through here. So what that means is we've got pretty low wind shear out there in the prime tropical zones. We're watching this development, especially where we could see barrel out into the Atlantic. Okay, so think again, these storms do not like high upper level winds. They like to bring that warm energy at the surface, bring it to the center of circulation like a big chimney, and then the heat kind of exits up at the upper levels of the atmosphere. So it's one big giant heat engine. And the thing that's going to be driving the system obviously is going to be the ocean heat content, which is continuing to run very warm. In fact, what we're seeing out there right now is kind of more on par. You look at the blue line there, that is the average, and we're definitely more on average of what we see, say, heading in toward the peak of the hurricane season and not back here on June the 26th. So we got some very warm fuel for these particular storms to develop as we go for the next few days going into early next week. Now, this is the primary zones. We're getting ready to go into July here real soon. We're going to wrap up the month of June, and you notice we start seeing a couple hot zones. The green here off the Atlantic coast, you're seeing some development there, but we also see a couple here down here over the last 100 years there into the parts of the western Atlantic as well as into the western portions of the Caribbean. So we could definitely see some more activity in this area. I think we're going to see more activity throughout the month of July in this zone just because of just how warm the ocean content is out there currently. So the question we're going to be watching, obviously we got those two areas of disturbed weather we're talking about, is which one becomes barrel first. Right now I'm leaning more toward the one out in the Atlantic side, but the one that's over there approaching the Yucatan, it could possibly develop into a tropical storm. If it does, it'll be a fairly weak one, but I'm not overly sold on that one for the way it's developing currently for the moment. So as you can see, yours truly is going to be pretty busy here over the next 7 to 10 days as we kind of watch how the tropics develop. And I have a couple of different ways for you to get this. Obviously, I'm going to do these more extensive reports on a regular basis as we kind of watch how things develop. And I also do a daily YouTube shorts, okay? Those are 60-second little blurbs that are updated daily, so you can get those into your YouTube feed as well. So if you'd like to get that information, please, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. You know what you're supposed to do. And again, I do appreciate any feedback you have. If there's things you'd like to have in this report, please leave a comment down below. And as always, give me a thumbs up. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. Got to play that game if you want to try to get your information out to as many people as possible. All right, that is going to wrap it up for this edition. Again, I want you guys to continue to stay and monitor what's going on. Be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.